Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about my top 5 nonfiction books of 2023. I read 78 books in 2023. Of these 78, 17 were nonfiction books. I chose my top 5 favorite nonfiction books regardless of how I rated them on Story Graph. I then ranked them in order. I previously did a video on my top 10 books of 2023. None of the nonfiction books made the list. That's why I wanted to do this list. After I talk about the 5 books that are my top 5 nonfiction books, I'm going to talk a little bit about a recent piercing I got. My number 5 nonfiction book is Bullshit Jobs: A Theory by Dave Graeber. There's a common belief that in a free market economy, the private sector cannot have unnecessary work. Only the public sector can have unnecessary jobs. Graeber shows that this just isn't true. He goes way back in time and moves forward to the present time to show the long history of how we got to this point where a lot of people do unnecessary work. He interviews a lot of people who have bullshit jobs. This book rang especially true for me because I realized that early in my career I had a bullshit job. I found the book both amusing, depressing, and infuriating all at once. I recommend this book for those who are willing to look at the reality of the workplace for many people these days. My number 4 book is Bleeding Green: A History of the Hartford Whalers. It tells the history of the Hartford Whalers from before they started, their time in Boston in the World Hockey Association, the time they moved to Hartford and continued in the World Hockey Association, the time they joined the NHL, and a little to their time and moved in to the time they moved to North Carolina and a little after that point. The author interviews many former players, former owners, former team officials, former coaches, and fans. I won't say former because there are some people who are still fans of the Whalers. Christopher Price became a fan of the Whalers when he was a child, and he later went on to become a sports writer, so he's uniquely qualified to tell their story. He talks about the how and why fans love the Whalers, and also the practical aspects of a team in a major league in a small market. Back in 1975, my aunts bought season tickets for my sister and myself to the Whalers. We had a lot of good times there. There were some highs and there was more lows, but for most of the time there we really enjoyed going to the games. The relationship soured kind of toward the end, but a lot of good memories, and the book brought them back to me. My number 3 book is The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs, A New History of Their Lost World by Steve Brusatte. He takes us from the time before their emergence, through their period of dominance, and through their extinction, although he and some others believe there is one type of dinosaur still alive today. He talks about the important figures in the field of dinosaur study over the years. The book is somewhat of a memoir too. He talks about his own reasons for getting into paleontology. When he talked about the likely scenarios that some of the dinosaurs lived and died in, I could picture them. This is a very good book. It's not dry. I enjoyed the book. It was well written and informative. My number 2 book is Becoming Nicole: A Transformation of an American Family by Ellis Nutt. The story is a memoir of a family. Wayne and Kelly Maines are a young married couple. They discover they're unable to conceive, so they arrange with a relative of Kelly's to serve as a surrogate for them. They will adopt the child essentially at birth. The relative of Kelly's ends up giving birth to 2 twin boys. The twins are Wyatt and Jacob. Wayne is an ex-military, avid hunter and fisherman, conservative Republican, he had a good family upbringing. Kelly had a poor family upbringing. Their upbringings come into play in how they handle events as this book moves forward. When Wayne learns he's the father of twin boys, he envisions teaching him to hunt and fish and spending a lot of time together with them doing that. But almost from the time Wyatt was aware, he knew he was a girl in a boy's body. The family settled in Maine. Since the title of the book is Becoming Nicole, it's not a spoiler to say that Wyatt becomes Nicole. The story tells how the family navigates all that entails. It focuses on all the family members, including Jacob. The book can be hard to read at points because some people and entities have no compassion for a child. Ultimately, I'm glad I read it. I learned some things. My number one book is Hello, I Want to Die, Please Fix Me, Depression in the First Person by Amy Mehler Paperney. The author is a reporter who initially enters into the mental health care system in Canada in 2011 after she attempted to take her life. Throughout the book, she discusses the many different approaches taken to try to improve her condition. Early on, she decides to look into both the Canadian and American mental health care systems. She also looks into some other countries, but mostly Canadian and American. She talks to a lot of mental health care experts in both countries. She talks to a lot of people who have been treated for severe depression and after attempting to take their life. The book is a good combination of her own experiences, the experience of other patients, and the experiences of mental health care professionals. It can be alarming at times. The book's difficult to read at points. I have to admit that I thought the American mental health care system was better than it actually is. Finally, I want to talk about my recent piercing. For a little while now, I've wanted to get an eyebrow piercing. On Thursday, January 11th, I went to Stay True Body Piercing in Newington, Connecticut to get the piercing done. Prior to getting a piercing with them, you have to make an appointment and pay the fee for the piercing. When you get there, you select your jewelry and pay for that after the piercing's done. When I got to the piercing salon, I checked in with a man at the front desk. He told me that the piercer, Joe, would come on in a little while and check to make sure I had the proper anatomy for the piercing. And that while I'm waiting, I could look at the jewelry if I wanted. So I did, and they have a lot of great jewelry there. A little while later, Joe came out. A little nervous that I wouldn't have the proper anatomy, but he looked and he determined that I did. Before the piercing could be done, it was necessary for me to review some documentation and check off some stuff and sign. They had me use my phone to scan a code that brought up a form that I had to check. I did so, checked off the various points, signed it electronically, and also as part of that I had to scan my license. A couple people helped me choose the jewelry. Then I sat down. A little while later, Joe came out, directed me back to his piercing room. So it's sort of like, these days are sort of almost like a medical office. There's the table that they do the piercing on is kind of like a doctor's examination table. Joe asked me if I wanted to select the area for the piercing or if I was okay with him selecting it. I let him select it. For one, he's a professional, and this is actually the 5th piercing I was having him do in the 3rd visit, so I had a comfort level with him. He took a toothpick and marked his suggested piercing location. Then he had me look in the mirror, and it looked okay to me. So then he had me lie back. He sterilized the area. He told me how I should breathe in, and then breathe out strongly while the piercing is being done. As far as pain goes, I would rate it maybe a 3 to 4 on a scale of 10. There's definitely a sharp pain, but not a reason I would say people shouldn't go get it if they really want to get this type of piercing. Joe asked me if I felt dizzy. Since I didn't, he had me sit up, had me look in the mirror, and I really liked the piercing. We didn't have to talk about aftercare too much because, as I said, I've been there a few times. But I did confirm that twice a day I need to apply saline solution with a Q-tip around both the holes of the piercing. I thanked Joe a lot, said he made my day, and he appreciated that. Then he directed me out front for me to pay, and they gave me a bottle of saline solution. And then I left, and it was a great experience overall. It's now 4 days after I got the piercing. There has been a little sensation in the piercing areas, but nothing serious. And just to show the piercing, here it is. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. I mostly plan to talk about books, but I am going to talk sometimes about personal stuff like getting a piercing and other things in my life. My goal is to try to upload videos about once a week.